Okay, hi. I'm Lynda Dyer, and I am the proud owner of the Howto Series. And what we've done with the Howto Series is taken information that's this wide and brought it down to information that's this wide. So why would you want to learn from me? Well, guess what? That seems to be a habit of mine, taking information this wide and bringing it down in usable chunks. You know, I was the activities director of a wellness centre in a hospital. And in that hospital, I was asked to go in and start a program from scratch. You know, they said, we want you to design a program in wellness. And they gave me some ideas of what they wanted to do. They had 5,000 staff, which was like rent a crowd for me. And they said they wanted to have the staff really healthy because they were looking after unwell people, as you can imagine. So they gave me 6 months to set it up, and in 6 weeks I had this program up and running. Because I remember when I was at school, I got an assignment and it said, I want you to design a program. All you've got is an office, a desk and a chair. And I thought, how stupid, who would get an assignment like that? And here I was in this hospital room setting up something from scratch, which is the story of my life. I love being that pioneer. That person that helps people just get off the ground and get started and start something. And that hospital program became $1 million business for the hospital in wellness. It's now all around the world. I had architects actually ring me to ask how they could redesign the hospital so that hospitals could be built in the future to incorporate the program that we'd created. Brought outside people into the hospital for wellness rather than sickness. The theme was not only, but also. And I believe that the How-To series is also that. Not only do you need to know about who you are, but also the way you function will allow you to understand how everyone else functions. How great would that be? So let's get on with it. All right, so the first DVD in this B series is around the brain. So why do we need to know about the brain? Well, you know what? I don't know about you, but how many of you do different actions or similar actions and yet you're expecting a different result? Yeah? I did for years. And I thought I had to work hard, for example. I thought I had to be busy. I was copying other people's behavior. So I didn't know how to change because I didn't have a picture of how to change. And I'm a visual. So are half of you. Half of the world's population are visuals. But nobody had given me a picture. And I'm so grateful for my prior learning in the Bob Proctor material and Dr. Truman Fleet's stick person that gave me a picture of how I could think differently. Taking that a step further in NLP, I learned about the brain and the neurons and the strategies that we form. I learned about the way we programmed as we're a kid growing up and that the stuff we've got in our subconscious mind can be cleared. We don't have to hang on to it. Go figure. So that we can change our behavior. But in order to do this, we need to understand all that. We need to understand how we tick. We need to understand that our conscious mind is only 4% of us, and the rest of us, our 96%, is our unconscious mind. How do we get access to that? Well, do you know what? We didn't even have a conscious mind or an unconscious mind until we were 7. So you see little kids in the shopping centre say to their mums, but why? But why? You know, that's when you're developing your consciousness. You're starting to question. However, everything we took in went into us like a sponge. And it's all in there. So now we have the ability that we can look at what do we want to keep, what do we want to let go of, and we can choose to let go of it. And NLP gives you all those opportunities on how you can, so succinctly, so swiftly, and piece of cake. So let's have a look now at behavioral representations. You know, I don't know if you realize, but every second of every day you are taking in 2 million bits per second, and I believe that's per eye. So think about that for a moment. If we're taking that much information in and then we process it through our filtration system, right, which we've talked about in the first series and we've talked about it recently, that this filtration system is all the values and beliefs and decisions and everything you've got from your parents and significant others in the way you were being raised. Then it goes up into your conscious mind and you only absorb 134 bits of that. Wow. Out of 134 bits, what are you taking on board? Did you take on all the facts? Did you take on all the pictures? Did you take on the feelings from what happened? Or did you take on what you heard? They, in fact, are your behavioral representational systems. We are either visual, we are either kinesthetic, touchy-feely, we are either auditory, we need to hear everything, or we are what we call, oh, that was a rude one, AD, because the audio-digital people like everything in fact form. Now, you know what the great thing about this is, that in the How-To series, I've actually acted out each one of these to show you how amazing they are. The beautiful part about this is that when you learn all these different behavioral representations, you can then copy somebody else and you can become visual. You can become kinesthetic. You can become audio-digital and you can become auditory. And why would you want to do that? Because now you're in rapport with the person you're talking to. Imagine getting into rapport with every person that you're with throughout the day. You're going to be considered the person that gets on with anyone, the most flexible behavior. So that's why it's really important. And you know why else it's important? Because then you go and marry the opposite. Go figure. So now you're this visual kinesthetic that marries an AD, yeah? How do we communicate? Hello? How do our marriages last? How do we form relationships? Because unless we learn this, like how many of you are so ignorant on how to communicate in a visual way or in an auditorily way? You know, if my husband would say something that, how much did I pay for the broccoli? I would say, who cares? Because I'm a visual. I see we need broccoli and I bought it. I'm not detailed enough, like the AD people, to even work out what I paid for it. Do visual people go bust a lot? Yeah, they do. Are they good in business? No. They're great at designing the great big vision, and they need the AD people around them to help them with their business structure. So that's why when we learn these representational systems, you will find that if you have a team that has all these representational systems in it, your business will get on with everyone every day. How cool would that be? So let's talk about body language, and let's talk about sensory acuity and rapport. Wow, 3 big topics. What are they? Well, you know what? Body language is such an important topic that I remember last year working with somebody from England that's all he teaches, because it's so demanded in corporate today to learn how to get that body language to a point where we can fully understand what somebody's saying without a word. Now, in the fitness industry, we were taught that 75% of your body language is telling the other person what they're saying. In NLP, we're taught that 55%. And the chap I worked with last year, he actually said the reason behind those different percentages is that there were 2 different people that were researching it, and they came up with different percentages, and they're not quite, you know, happy about changing. So what we need to know, though, is if you can imagine only 7% of you is the words you speak, and the rest is your tonality or your body language, then this is a big topic, yeah? Imagine sitting on a plane and somebody swallows. He does this big swallow next to you. And so you turn around and you say to him, oh, so who are you swallowing? And he answers. He goes, my grandma. And then I go, well, it's 4 o'clock in the morning. We'll be in Sydney at 8 a.m. and it's 4 hours to go. I'm a professional NLP coach and you've got a problem with grandma. So if you like, I can help you clear grandma. And he says, I'd love it. They don't always say that, mind you. But he said, I'd love it. So we end up doing a whole session around grandma to the point where he left the plane and went and had a relationship back with his grandma after not speaking with her for 20 years. Now that came from body language, a swallow. People find that things accumulate in their throat area. And that's what we can pick up. Imagine learning that. And then we can look at your skin. Is your skin tone good or bad? Physiologically, your body runs from your nervous system. So you can't change it. You can't come up and say to me, yeah, I'm really happy to be here. Because I don't get that you are. So we need to be genuine about what's really going on, because you know what? The NLP trainers will pick it up very quickly about what's going on. And of course we talk about rapport. Rapport is so essential. Sitting like somebody, speaking like somebody, copying somebody else's behavior. So you now are speaking, selling an idea with integrity. And of course that takes a lot of training. I'd love to share this with you. And of course the How-To series has this as one of its DVDs with practical demonstrations and everything to show you how this would work. So imagine you learning body language. Imagine you knowing how when somebody's face changes or their eyes change or their lower lip changes. Did you know that? That when you don't like something, your lower lip gets really skinny. Yeah. And also that if you're out of rapport, that there's no argument on this planet where two people are in rapport. The only time you argue is when you're out of rapport with the other person because you're trying to be right. We talked about that in another series before. Both of you, in fact, are right. So if you can get into rapport with the other person and ask great questions, then you can both see how everyone has an interesting perception rather than one person's right and one person's wrong. I'd love you to come and learn this. It's the most profound thing I ever learned. And while originally I thought it was a game, I use it every day. And I'd love you to use it too. So now we're going to look at belief formations and changing beliefs. We've actually addressed this topic before, but you know what? It's so important that I think we need to address it again at a different level. How do we get our beliefs? How are they formed? Well, if you remember when we did programming, our programming goes in 7-year stints. So, for example, Robert Dilts and I think Maslow also looked at the first 7 years being where we're imprinted, and the next 7 years being where we modeled behavior, and then the next 7 years from 14 to 21 is when we socialized and picked up other behaviors. Well, in those first 7 years, that's where we picked up a lot of our beliefs. And we talked also about, you know, we can't afford it. Well, that became a limiting belief for most people. What's another limiting belief? I don't deserve that. I'm not good enough. Because somebody in our world told us that when we were a child. You may have a belief that says you can do anything, which actually could be a limiting belief. Because we're not birds, so we really, you know, don't fly terribly well off buildings without wings. And so there's lots of other things that we can look at as far as beliefs. But belief formations are formed in our neurons and dendrites. And we need to understand that these are in your brain, in the frontal lobe. And as your frontal lobe develops, we're starting to develop the strategies, if you like, or the pathways. And these beliefs are things that because they're repetitive, we believe them over and over and over and over again. For example, I'm not good enough may have happened when I remember when I was a little kid and asked to get up and sing. And I sang. I mean, we were trained singing. All our family sing. My son's a professional singer. And so I was asked to get up and sing, and all of a sudden there were no words that came. Who's done that? You know, like absolutely got to the microphone and nothing came out. Well, so I made a decision that I should have a belief now that I don't feel good enough. So I remember sitting down, this little 3 or 4 year old sitting down, and I wanted to crawl through the floorboards. And then again, something else may have happened down the track. And I started to begin to believe again that maybe I'm not good enough. What can I do? So I started working really hard around a lot of things to show people that I was good enough. You know, and then I started to think, well, that's what I have to do in order to prove and to get over this limiting belief. I have to start working hard. Well, see, that's another limiting belief. Because we actually know now that by working smart, that's a cool belief. and that it may not be serving you, because I got lupus, I got a disease of the immune system working hard, yeah? So that's how our limiting beliefs were formed, bit by bit by bit by bit by bit. But because we have an experience and a memory, our system goes back to that memory and it looks up. We're so amazing, we put everything into order. Yeah, so our system goes back and puts all that in order, and we come up with these limiting beliefs, which gives us some reference or proof, if you like, that we may not be totally good at this time. And so we need to make some changes or not. That's our choice. So that's the formation of the belief. This process is wonderful. It allows you to go back and find out where the first event was, and it allows you to clear it from the first event and gather all the resources that you need to not have those limiting beliefs. And when you come back in your timeline and clear all those limitations by putting in beautiful positive resources, whammo, the belief is yesterday. So if you would like to do that, I would love to show you how. So behavioural flexibility and goals. What a handle. Who designed that title? You know what? When you look at it, behavioural flexibility. It's how can we be flexible in our behaviour in order for our goals to become fruition. Now again, we've talked about goals before, and this time we want to take it to a whole new level. And by doing that, we want to get what we call the psychology and the physiology of excellence involved. That's what this means. So behavioural flexibility is allowing you to think of your goal physiologically. In other words, what body action do you need to take to make your goal a reality? And then what way do you need to be thinking to make your goal a reality? Yeah? So the way we do that is we actually set our goal. Here's our goal here. And then we take action toward our goal. Now, if you haven't got anything cleared up here, then your goal may be puny and your actions may be even more puny. So what we want to do is we want to work out what is it we want to clear in order for you to set a bigger goal with the beliefs around you, clear the limiting beliefs, set a goal where you don't need to know the how. Yeah, just set some outrageous goal where you just love, you really, this is your passion, this is what you want to do. Then we want to take some action steps towards it. Yeah, and we want to look at how can we make that happen, and we want to get a belief around how it can happen. So we've got the psychology and the physiology working together. Then what I do is I come along and go, well, what's working and what's not working? And if you did this every month, imagine doing that in your business every month, yeah, your goal will absolutely manifest quicker than you expect. Why? Because how many people set a goal and then they don't give it any heedance? Nobody goes and checks on it to see if it's working. Well, in this system, by asking yourself, what's working? And you write those down, and then you say, what's not working? And in the what's not working component, this is where your flexibility comes in. So you say to yourself, is there something I need to change? Is there a behavior that I need to perform that's different? Do I need to outsource something? By outsourcing, I can get it done a lot quicker. Like, for example, I don't know how to do what I'm having done now so that you can get this information. So I've outsourced the beautiful Paul Lange to get this out and make it work for you, right? And so that means that by working together, flexibility of my behavior, we can make something happen for you. And the other thing that may happen there is, do I need to let it go? Yeah, so there's lots of questions to ask in the what's not working. Then we bring it together and we reset the goal. Now imagine doing that every month. I remember teaching that to one man and he went, oh, Lynda, that's the biggest aha moment I've ever had. He said, I set my goals, but I never go and look to see if they're working. Well, now you can. So I'd love to show you how to do that because it's absolutely profound. And most of my annual goals, I've got them by May. So come and join me. Okay, so now I'd like to talk to you about the buying strategy. What on earth is that? Well, do you know every time you go and buy something, you have a strategy. In fact, we have a strategy for everything. You have a strategy for going to the toilet. You have a strategy for eating. You have a strategy for drying yourself after you've had a shower. You have a strategy for getting up, for making love. You have a strategy for everything. And that's part of that neuron and dendrite stuff, yeah? We form strategies. Well, over our lifetime, we've formulated a strategy on how we buy something. Do we need somebody to tell us? Do we need somebody or somebody else's opinion? Is it something we do on our own? Do we need to see something? Do we need to get a feeling about something? By learning all the different representational systems, by learning the eye patterns of a person. Wow. Yeah? So, for example, if I was to look up to the left, being a right-handed person, then you could look in my eyes and go, oh, she's recalling something visually. Imagine if I was to look down to the left, then you could say, oh, she wants more information. How profound would it be for you to know that from somebody's eye patterns, that you could ask the next question to find out how to sell something to them with integrity? Because their eyes are telling you what the question is that you need to ask. So I'm not going to tell you the buying strategy because we've actually worked it out. The #1 buying strategy of 95% of the population is what you're going to learn in this how-to series. So I'd love you to come on board and find out what that is. Okay, so the How-To Series B series is amazing just for you. It was designed for you to know about the brain and the mind. It was also made for you to know about your behavioral representations. How do we represent the world? How do we do body language and rapport, and how do we communicate to each other if we marry the opposite to get equilibrium? How do we form beliefs and strategies through our neurons and dendrites? How do we have behavioral flexibility? How can we have behavior and be flexible in our behavior to get on with anybody? And then how on earth do we buy and how do others buy? Because if we don't know that, how can we sell? Let me give you an example. A chap comes to me and he's got an opportunity to get $1.4 million a building contract. And he said to me, Lynda, I really want to get this building contract and there's 2 of us going for it. And I said, all right, I bet the 2 people sitting opposite you, you're getting on with one of them and you haven't paid the other one much attention. And he said, perfect. And I said, well, she's actually not the decision maker. So if she's a visual kinesthetic like you are, I want you to turn your energy to the guy that's a decision maker today. And I said he's going to be sitting up straight and he's going to be not attached to any emotion and he'll want a lot of detail. Remember, the AD people needs a detail. Give him that detail. Get into rapport with him. Sit the way he does. Talk the way he talks. Give him the detail that he requires. He did exactly what I asked him to do, what he'd learned in this program. He did exactly every form of this. He got a $1.4 million contract that afternoon in 10 minutes because he followed these instructions. Have a look at this series and see how you can make some changes to what you do.